Well, the looks of the carp in this lake never cease to amaze me. They really are absolute stunners, and this was a lovely welcome in the early hours. I also had another one, and it just seems like a few fish filter down to this end throughout the night. I catch a couple and then they move off again and go on their merry way around the lake and into other areas. But you know what, I've really enjoyed my little trip to the road lake, and I'm definitely going to be back, hopefully catching these when they're even bigger still. News is that Richard's had a really good night. He's had a few fish, so we're going to get up there and have a look at those carp too.
Well, just look at this fella. 27 pounds of chunky road lake common. Biggest part of my brace from last night. The other one was a mirror about upper doubles, big apple slice scales on it. They both came to a scattering of 18 millers, about 100 yards out in the lake. Nothing you wouldn't do back home in England. So let's take a look at the tactics and the rigs that I caught it on.
Now then, Big Bernard, it's fair to say you do a lot of your fishing back home, and commercial waters in France is not really a pastime of yours, is it?
No, I've probably been out to friends 4 or 5 times ever, so much of my fishing's back home, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know from your time as a magazine editor, you must have been inundated with questions from people planning to come to France, asking, you know, how do they reinvent the wheel when they come here? The truth is, you don't change anything, do you?
You don't need to. No, I just fish how I fish back home because I've got confidence in those tactics. I don't think spending all that money coming out to France that it's the right place to be experimenting, mate, not at all.
That's something we tried to get you all to understand back at home, the fact that you don't need to come to France and suddenly change everything you're doing. Everything you do back at home is going to work here, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, especially whilst these road lake fish are still growing, they're still, you know, relatively unpressured fish. Everything that you're going to do at home is going to work here, 100%.
Absolutely. Well, look, the rig you're using is pretty famous back at home. It's a rig known as the multi-rig or the Johnny Mac rig, however you want to dress it up. But tell me why you chose a pop-up to start with.
The swim I started in initially, I was casting quite tight to a tree line, and you've got a lot of detritus naturally, just falls out the trees, leaf litter, sticks, etc. The drop I was getting, especially in the heavy crosswinds, was quite muffled, so I just didn't know exactly what it was. I didn't want to go fishing a bottom bait when I wasn't entirely sure I was going to get presentation every time. And with it being early on in the session, I was feeling my way into it. I wanted to get bites, I wanted to make sure I was fishing at 100%, so that's where a pop-up comes in.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, well, it makes perfect sense. You've matched the rig to the fishing situation rather than going in going, right, I'm definitely using bottom baits. You've got in a swim, you've assessed the situation, and you've picked, you know, it's not a very high pop-up, but it's enough to stick out above any sort of debris on the bottom.
That's why I like it. I don't always want to fish a big, high, stiff hinge. Something a bit more subtle sometimes is better over a little bit tighter baiting scenario, which is what I had up there.
Yeah, brilliant. So, look, first thing, I want to know how you tie this up, because I know it is something quite simple that people can do back at home, and it's brilliant for interchanging your hooks as well, isn't it?
I mean, it possibly looks a little bit complicated like that, but in effect, all it is a piece of coated braid with 2 loops at one at either end.
Right, okay, so talk me through the exact process. What's the first thing you do?
Right, okay, so the first thing is I tie the loop at the hook end, which is, I don't know, say, it depends how high you want to fish it, but around inch and a half. Yep. Probably inch and a half.
And is that like a twisted figure of 8 or something?
That's a twisted figure of 8 loop. Just the twist allows the loop to sit very straight. Yeah. Otherwise it'll kick out to one side.
Yeah, I mean, if you can see that is so beautifully neat. Look at that, it just exits perfectly straight. There's not sort of anything lopsided, or some of them can go through twisted. Yeah. So that knot aids that, so it's coming out beautifully straight. And
you can see because the 2 sides of the loop are completely parallel, you get that slightly stiffer feel to it, and if it was a bit lopsided you wouldn't get that rigidity, which is quite important, I think, at that end of things.
And do you steam it tight, or do you pull it tight?
I do steam the whole rig once I've tied it, but it is pulled tight initially, and then just a little bit of pressure and I steam it at the same time. And the other thing that the steaming achieves is, you see just below the knot there's a break in the coating which allows the hook section to swivel and move. This is tied on end trap semi-stiff, and when you pull back a little bit of the coating, it does sort of
Give you some
crease up.
flexibility.
Well, initially it creases slightly.
It
find,
gives you a crinkle, doesn't it?
I find when you steam it down, actually that smooths out a little bit.
Yeah.
And it becomes a much neater
finish.
Much neater finish, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And have you just got a shot over that?
That's a shot, yeah.
And then some sort of dark matter patty over the top?
Wrapped around the top, yeah. It just allows you to take little pieces off and, you know, having it settling critically very, very slowly over.
So how do you like talking about that? How do you like it to sink? You know, because I talk to a lot of people, they like them pinned to the deck.
Yeah.
Do you like yours to sort of waft down?
It's a bit of both. If I'm fishing over something that's known, say a nice sandy or clay or gravel deck,
Bang.
bang.
Yeah.
If it's on something that I'm not sure about, then the slower it settles, the better as far as I'm concerned.
Let it flutter and find its own position.
And
So you come up to the other end, yeah?
Well, just before we move on, the semi-stiff really plays into that kind of critical weighting.
Because it's moving it away from the lead system.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm really interested in is this end, because most people have a really small loop generally, don't they? But you've got, you know, a big loop made here, so it's almost doubled up. Why have you done that?
Well, it works a little bit like the anti-tangle sleeves that you're so fond of, Al. Just gives you that long stiff section coming off the lead clip that's going to kick that rig away in flight. So it just eliminates tangles really. That end of things. It's crucial with that again the loop is perfect. Otherwise you'll get one side slightly out of kilter and it won't work at all. So it's crucial that you pay a little bit of attention when you're doing that sort of thing.
Now we've covered the loops and how you tie them up. Now the final bit I actually want you to tell me about is actually how you apply that loop to the hook and how it all works.
Okay, so all you do is slightly flatten the loop, poke it through the eye,
front of the eye,
front to back, and then you'll actually see there's a little rig ring which is able to run on that loop. I actually tie my baits to the rig rings beforehand, slip the ring onto the loop, and then take the end of the loop up and over the hook, and it effectively lassos the hook on. So,
yeah, brilliant. And do you favour a position because I know this rig can be used with bottom baits. Mike Kavanagh, for example, used to use them right round there, and also he'd have them pulled right down here, almost swimmer style, like that.
Yeah. Well, that's how it ends up when you're playing a fish.
Yeah.
But I like my loop to be kind of between the barb and the point, really.
Yeah, just
so mid-shank, I suppose.
Yeah, a good pop-up position, if you like. So you're getting that. I've messed your rig up a little bit, but you're getting a lovely sort of claw effect every time you use it, aren't you?
That's right. That angle just looks like it's going to whip out and hook them, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And Rich, I presume it's not a rig you've just decided to use here. You've had a lot of success with it in England, haven't you?
Absolutely. It's a rig that I've used a lot when I'm visiting new waters for the first time because it's so sort of universally effective. And I actually I've certainly caught one UK 40-pounder on it. So, yeah, that was a notable capture.
Brilliant stuff, brilliant stuff. So a rig you can take anywhere, on any lake, England, France, and it's going to do the do. And you're just complementing it very simply with a lead clip setup, yeah?
That's right, yeah, simple as it comes, not complicating it at all. I'm dropping the lead, probably on the take over here, so, and these fish are fighting hard, so I'm not getting many leads back.
No, brilliant stuff. And there you go, we've told you all along throughout this show that when you come to France, you don't need to change anything you're doing. Stick to what you're confident in, stick to what you're using in England with success, and come here and you'll do the same.